Hello and welcome to Talking Royals, the weekly podcast from ITV about all things royal, of course. I'm here, the royal editor of ITV, Chris Shipp, and with me is Lizzie Robinson,
Yep.
royal producer.
Yep.
Welcome back. Happy New Year. Seems a bit late to be saying Happy New Year, but
It does,
nevertheless.
but Happy New Year,
Happy
nonetheless.
New Year,
it's our
first
first
podcast.
one of the year.
Should we mention that the last time we did something in this studio was a quiz,
Yep.
and there was a competition between my team and your team?
Yep.
And one team won and one team didn't.
Yep.
Yes. Do you want to
Congratulations.
recap on
I
any of
don't
that?
think we need to dwell on it. Congratulations. Let's move on.
If you do want to look at that podcast, it was a special Christmas edition wrapping up 2024. You can find it wherever you get your podcasts from. On my team, I had Kate Mancy from The Times. Lizzie had Russell Myers from The Mirror. Let's just say we competed.
We did. It was good fun. It was really good fun.
Right,
And,
let's talk about this week because it was looking like it might be quite a quiet week in Royal Land. That's quite an unusual thing in itself, but turned out that there was quite a big event happening on Tuesday that none of us knew about in advance, and that was Kate not only going back to the hospital where she had her cancer treatment, which in itself was new, we didn't know it was at the Royal Marsden, but that Kate and how she referred to her cancer recovery, her cancer journey.
Yeah, this was a chance for the Princess of Wales to reflect on the personal journey that she has been on. It was also a chance for her to thank the staff that have cared for her, supported her in the journey that she has been through over the last year. And, you know, I think a really poignant visit for the Princess of Wales and a really important one for her too. And she wanted to do it on her own. It was her reflecting on her journey.
Yes.
And, you know, I think...
Well, the reason you raise that is because actually she's now joined William as a joint royal patron of the Royal Marsden, which is not just a hospital where they treat cancer patients like Kate and all the others that go there, but also it does a lot of research into cancer and a lot of trials about different types of cancer treatments. But it wasn't a visit of the two of them. No. It was Kate on her own because it was her own journey that she's been on in the past year.
Yeah, and that was, as well, is significant. It's her first major solo engagement in a year since she had that surgery, the abdominal surgery that she had last January.
So it's right to say there's not been a single solo engagement by Kate.
So
because
she visited Westminster Abbey for her carol concert in December. Part of that was
on her own, but then she was joined by her family.
And then she was joined by her family. But I think, you know.
And we had Troop in the Colour in the summer.
Yeah, Wimbledon.
Wimbledon was with Charlotte, wasn't it?
Charlotte, and she had her sister Pippa there as
and then obviously the other event that she did was
Southport with Prince William.
Yes, Prince William. Oh, of course, and then also Remembrance Sunday.
Remembrance Sunday, of course.
So, but a solo engagement. So in itself, that was new for Kate. But we're told this isn't. Wow, she's back. This is her doing back full time. She's still on this gradual journey of return to work.
Yeah, this is not the start of 2025, and things are. You know, she's back to full royal duties. Her return to work will continue to be gradual, and she will continue to focus on her recovery as well.
Let's talk about then what she said to the patients, because I think it was clear from the pictures, and if you're watching this, you might see some of the pictures now of Kate at the Royal Marsden. There was definitely a connection there, wasn't there? In the same way, I think, as we saw with the King when he went to a cancer unit back in the summer, his return to public duties. You know, for example, with this woman that we're looking at the moment, if you're watching this podcast, she also called Catherine, by the way, just touching her knee, just having a real understanding of perhaps the cold cap. I think Catherine was telling us that Kate had a port fitted, just like she's got, which is how they put the chemotherapy drugs into the body. And it was really evident, wasn't it, that Kate knew what they were all going through.
Yeah, I mean, the Princess of Wales has her own personal understanding now of what some of these patients are going through. And do you remember when the King visited the Cancer Treatment Centre and he was meeting patients, and how he had, he was very tactile, there was you could tell there was a real understanding between him and them, that they sort of knew a little bit about what each other were perhaps going through. And I got the sense with Princess of Wales that it was similar. There was, a lot of hugs, a lot of, she was reaching out to people, touching knees. It was a very, very personal visit. And I think empathy that you can only really understand if you've been through something like that yourself. And she, of course, has now.
And one of the things she said, actually, was that when she went into the hospital, for a start, she was going through the front door.
Yeah.
And she said it was quite nice to go through the front door, because all the other times I came there, I had to be stuck around the back, because no one obviously knew she was there or where she was having her treatment. But also she was talking to the patients about how they're all having their chemotherapy in the same room, where she very much felt like she was on her own because of either security or secrecy or privacy, whatever else. And I think she saw there was a benefit to being in the room with lots of other people.
I think when we found out that she was going to the Royal Marsden and that she was going to be meeting other patients, do you remember in September when she put out that statement saying that she'd finished her preventative chemotherapy, and she spoke about those still continuing their journey, and how that she wanted to kind of remain with them side by side, like hand in hand. And I got a real sense that that was her sort of one of the ways in which she was kind of carrying out that promise that she made.
Yeah, and also that shared conversation. Have a listen to this. So this is the Catherine. This was a patient who was talking to Kate. She was wearing the cold cap, which some patients having chemotherapy do wear. And they were talking about, something that they both had in common, which was A, preventative chemotherapy, and B, having this port inserted into the body for the drugs to be administered. Have a listen.
I've just had a port put in, and she had the same, so it was just nice to hear how she felt about it. She said she was quite attached to it.
It was quite interesting, because I think the Catherine patient had just had it put in that morning, and therefore she found it very interesting. As she just said, Kate became attached to it, whereas she found it like a foreign body at that moment, whereas Kate was saying, well, I got very attached to mine. It was just part of the treatment.
There was this other conversation she had talking about how, the Princess of Wales has now finished her chemotherapy, and she spoke about how you think you can just sort of crack on and get back to normal, but that things are still a real challenge. You don't just finish that treatment and then go back to normal. And we've heard her talk. It's the new normal, she said. And she spoke in that written statement she put out later that day about the new normal. And I think it's going to take. She's focused on her recovery and taking time post treatment to work out what that new normal looks like for her. Yeah,
and also I think she was talking at one stage about the long-term side effects of chemotherapy, because we all think of maybe the short-term, some people lose their hair, but she didn't say what, but clearly there are long-term side effects that you then have to go on and deal with in your life. It's not like recovery done, let's go.
Yeah.
So I thought that itself was interesting. But you know what, the fact that we're talking about it, the fact that she was talking about it, that it was the lead story on our bulletin. The chief executive at the hospital, Dame Callie Palmer, was talking about how when you've got people like the royal family talking about their cancer, the king as well, let's not forget, who still has cancer, that makes it a much less kind of frightening journey for everyone else out there who is going through this.
As a specialist cancer centre, it's incredibly important that we take some of the fear out of a cancer diagnosis, and that openness and transparency is really important, because cancer touches so many people and their families.
When she says so many people, it's 1 in 2, isn't it? Will get cancer as some form in their lives. Let's talk about a couple of social media posts then. There was the one that Kate put out that afternoon when she revealed that she was in remission. Again, very personal. And also we should touch again on the post that William put out there for his wife's birthday, which was very outwardly loving towards his wife, which is not something you would normally say of the royal family, like showing their love in that sort of public way. I
think we've seen over the last year this real openness from the royal family in lots of different ways, the way they've spoken about the health that they've been going through, right back to last January when the Princess of Wales said she was going in for abdominal surgery. The King spoke about going in for treatment for an enlarged prostate. They've both spoken about treatment for cancer. William spoke at the end of last year about how it had been the most brutal of years. And then this post that we've had talking about what an incredible wife and mother she is, the strength that she has shown, the love that they all have for her. That's
Which she said, "We love you."
Yeah, that's very different.
It was from him and George, Charlotte and Louis.
Yeah, that's very different.
So,
and, you know, these are, they're very different and difficult times. And I think, you know, the royal family is approaching things in a new, perhaps more modern way.
It's worth reflecting on the last year because, you know, the other day I think on one of my social media feeds I had some reminder that it was a year to the day since the Danish king ascended the throne, and we went out there to cover it, didn't we, in the freezing cold snow of Copenhagen. Not knowing, and that was before we were told that Kate was going into hospital for her abdominal surgery, before the king then went into the same hospital for his prostate operation, before the king then said he had cancer, then Kate said she had cancer. Of course, we just mentioned the king still got his and he's still being treated for it. What a year in that sense of about how the royal family are doing things very differently to how Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip used to deal with illnesses and medical matters.
Yeah, they're being much more open, much more transparent, and I think, you know, changing with the times. I mean, I think, you know,
they're a different generation.
They're a different generation. Yeah. I did think, you know,
it's hard to be 76 as the king is and be called the new generation, but but compared to his mother and father, then he is.
He is, yeah, and I think, you know, they're adapting as these challenges are thrown at them, and I think that can only be, you know, it's been received, I think, quite well. Should we just look at the bit of the social media post that Catherine put up in the afternoon after her visit to the Royal Marsden?
Yeah.
Because she said that it was a relief to now be in remission, and I remain focused on recovery. It takes time to adjust to a new normal, and how she looks forward to a fulfilling year. So I think the key word in that is remission. It's the first time that she has described herself as being in remission. We've had,
because actually in September she said, I'm on the way to being cancer free.
She said, I'm doing what I can to stay cancer free.
And there was a bit of confusion then about whether are you cancer free now or are you working towards being cancer free. But I think the explanation that we had from the palace was, well, Kate's chemo had only just finished. She wasn't comfortable with saying remission at that time, but now she is.
Yeah, there's some time that's passed, and therefore I think, you know, that therefore the word has been used for the first time now, and that is a very positive thing and has been received. You know, everyone is very positive about that. I thought also, you know, her using that new normal term. I think we spoke about it earlier about how she's not just finished a treatment and coming back to normality. And I think, you know, we need to give her the time and space for her to focus on her recovery and come back to engagements at her own pace and in her own time. There was also a lot of talk on that day about the thanks to all those that have kind of quietly walked beside her and William.
Yeah.
And it had echoes of the King's Christmas broadcast where he thanked all those
medical staff
that had looked after him and his family.
Yes.
And there is a huge, appreciation clearly from both of them.
We haven't dissected that, and we won't now because it's back in Christmas time. But the king, who did his Christmas broadcast from a former hospital chapel, so he got that sort of kind of religious connection, if you like, the faith connection, but also the connection to hospitals and the medical staff that have affected him and his daughter-in-law throughout the year.
And she said several times, didn't she, on that visit, you know, how amazing the staff at the Royal Marsden have been, and how brilliantly they'd looked after her, and to everyone that, you know, she was speaking to, that you were in really, really good hands here.
Let's talk about the King's other daughter-in-law then.
Okay.
Meghan.
Yeah.
Now, this week there was meant to be a big release by Netflix of Meghan's new series. Mm-hmm. Now, this is a series called With Love, Meghan. Mm-hmm. And if you're listening or watching this, let's just listen and see what the promotional video was all about, and you'll get a flavour of what With Love, Meghan is all about.
Let's make a show.
Let's go. I've always loved taking something pretty ordinary and elevating it. Surprising people with moments that let them know I was really thinking of them.
What? This is probably one of the most glamorous moments of my life.
It's magic.
I'm going to share some little tips and tricks.
So, I mean, what is there to say about this? So if you're not watching, we've just seen Meghan in a kitchen cooking, making cakes. She's currently scooping ice cream and doing all sorts of other things, making bread, and in a flower shop or something. What's I mean, a lot of people, the word that I wasn't really aware of before, like, it's very trad wife. Is this a phrase I'm not that clear about, but trad wife being...
It's been used a lot, hasn't it? There we have just seen a clip of Meghan with the beehives. So she's got that in common with her father-in-law and sister-in-law.
Yeah, quite.
It kind of reminds me of...
Martha Stewart,
but also, Meghan...
Is Meghan going to be the new Martha Stewart? I mean, it's not a direction that we thought Meghan would necessarily go in when she...
But you say that. If you think about Meghan pre-royal family, when she had the TIG, her sort of lifestyle blog, I think, this was very much an area that Meghan... focused a lot on. So perhaps it is actually her going back to something that she really enjoyed pre-royal family.
I just think everything she said about, women on the international stage and making a difference and the sisterhood and all the rest of it, are we oversimplifying it to say, well, this is a cooking show?
8 30-minute episodes on...
8 30 minutes?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That we'll now have to watch on the 4th of March.
OK, well, I suppose let's explain then why we're not watching it now, because actually there's a very serious reason why the whole thing was delayed.
Just before we do that, do you think there'll be interest in this? Do you think there's an appetite, or do you think people will watch it just because it's Meghan?
I think they're watching because of Meghan, and also we should point out that actually that wasn't Meghan's kitchen that you were just looking at. That was either a TV studio or a borrowed house somewhere. I mean, if you were hoping to see what Harry and Meghan have got in their spice cupboard, you're not going to see that.
You're not going to see that. Harry does have a very small cameo in
he does,
in the promo video, but so... Let's see if he appears a little bit more in the show. But
before it was really, really newsworthy because of what they were saying. That 6-part previous Netflix series they did was all about their exit from the royal family, saying things about William and grandmother and all the rest of it. This is none of that. This is them closing the door on that and looking forward, which is why I'm just a little bit surprised that she's chosen to do this.
Yeah, I think we've spoken a lot about how they were perhaps going to start looking forward and not back so much. But of course, the last time that they did their 6-part Netflix,
I remember it very well. Yes,
you remember. The attention on that was obviously enormous for obvious reasons, and Netflix must have been delighted to have. That was just before
Christmas. After Christmas, he had the book coming out. I mean, let's not go there again. But there was a lot of newsworthy material in it. This is from what we've seen in the promo about how to put floral decorations on a nice donut, how to put strawberries on a cake, how to make a lovely salad, and some nice looking focaccia.
I mean, I'm sure the rest of the royal family are breathing a great sigh of relief, but let's see how it does. Maybe
Archie's waffle maker will appear. Do you remember the story about Archie's waffle maker? That I think Harry told James Corden that the late Queen had bought her great-granddaughter son a waffle maker. Yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was delayed because
of the devastating wildfires that are.
And really, they didn't really have much of a choice. If she's wandering about these sort of beautiful manicured green lawns in a Californian mansion or wherever they filmed it, it would have sat very uncomfortably with what's happening in California right now with the fires and the devastation it's been caused.
Yeah, Netflix said that this was at her request that it was delayed until the 4th of March, and they've actually been, haven't they, to see. They live in Montecito, which I think is about 90 odd miles from Los Angeles where the fires are.
There was a lot of criticism of them going to that, but I kind of think there are some quarters of not just our press, but maybe other press that will just always criticise Harry and Meghan. If they didn't go, they would have said, oh, you're only down the road, why didn't you go? Whereas they did go and they were being accused by some people of being disaster tourists.
Yeah, I think when it comes to Harry and Meghan these days, that whatever they do, they are going to have criticism from some quarters. And, I think that they paid a visit, they met people who were at a distribution centre, they met emergency services, those that have been affected.
Yeah, and they were helping to serve food,
Yeah.
and they were also putting a lot of support on the World Kitchen that Meghan and Harry and Archibald have had a long association with. So they were doing some good.
That sort of...
They weren't just turning up for a photo opportunity.
Yeah, that
what
sort
I
of
could tell.
impact that you said that perhaps why you were surprised that she'd done the
and
cooking
it was,
show.
but as far as I know, it was anonymous. They were there with masks and caps on, and it just happened the news crew saw them. Some people might argue that the news crew were tipped off. Who knows? But I
they've
kind
had
of
a lot
think
of
that's a lot of
criticism.
criticism for something that when they were just trying to do some good and support people in their own neighbourhood. While we're on Meghan, should we just very quickly talk about the dog and the. She's now got an Instagram account again.
Yes,
hasn't
so
had
that's
one
happened
since the Tig a long time ago. And then they had Sussex Royal. All of that's closed, and now she's got her own one.
So she has an account, Meghan, just now. And do you remember we spoke about this ages and ages ago about how there was this account and people were wondering, did it belong to her? And it had loads of followers and no posts and a picture, I think, of a flower. And everyone wondered, is it Meghan's? Anyway, I was following it, but I also set up an alert on it. So when it kicked in, if it ever kicked into life, it would ping. And I was away and it pinged. I was like, oh, what's
And this was the video of Meghan running onto the beach and writing 2025 in the sand.
And then quite soon after that, we had the promo video for the Netflix show.
Yes, and then the other post on there has been about the death of her dog, which...
Guy.
Now, Guy, we should point out, predates Harry.
Yes.
Because she basically fell in love with Guy when she was filming Suits in Toronto.
Yes, Guy, I think she rescued in 2015, and then he came over to the UK with her.
He's been on the full on journey with them.
He's been on the long
highs and the lows.
And he's in the promo.
He's probably seen all the rows. You know, he probably had a lot of information in his head. The other thing that we've had this week, by the way, is just a confirmation from Buckingham Palace that the King is going to this very, very important commemoration on the 27th of January, which is the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz.
This is an incredibly significant and poignant, I think, trip for the King.
Being 2025, of course, you know, we've got not just Auschwitz, then the VE Day coming up later in the year as well.
He was actually at a reception at Buckingham Palace the other day to mark Holocaust Memorial Day, and he was saying to a Holocaust survivor, Manfred Goldberg, who was there, how important it was to him to be going to Poland for the anniversary. And interestingly, and I can't quite believe this, it will be the first time that Charles has been to Auschwitz, even though this will be his 5th visit to Poland.
Yeah,
and given how much work he does in this area, I was really surprised.
I went there many years ago with a former Prime Minister, Gordon Brown, and you never forget a visit to Auschwitz. And we've been to Yad Vashem in Jerusalem, haven't we? Where the King's been there, Prince William's been there, which is the official memorial to the Holocaust in Jerusalem. I'm with you. I'm very surprised the King has yet to go there.
It's so important to him. He does a lot of work.
Interfaith dialogue
and so I was quite surprised. So surprised I actually called the palace twice to double check I hadn't got it wrong.
And they said it is definitely the first time.
So the 75th anniversary, Camilla, when she was Duchess of Cornwall, she went to those commemorations, but the King is going this time, and I think it'll be a really important and poignant visit for him.
Of course, very, very, very significant moment. And again, we've got VE Day coming up in May, of course, and we all know what happened on VE Day when the late Queen famously snuck out to the palace and went celebrating with all the crowds. So,
and then we think the King is also going to Italy in the spring,
seeing the Pope.
So I think what we were told at the end of last year when we were finishing up the tour of Australia and Samoa is that 2025 would be a full overseas programme, and it is looking that way.
And I've said before on this podcast, I really think that I'd really like to accompany the King on a visit to the US, because just go and see Donald Trump in the US would be quite something. I don't know whether the palace watches or listens to this podcast, but there's just a helpful contribution to your calendar planning for the year.
That's the FCDO. that
Yes,
you really need to get on the phone to.
Office will probably quite like that as well. Thanks, Lizzie. Thank you very much indeed for watching and listening to our podcast. You know where to find all the previous editions, wherever you get your podcast from, including the Christmas quiz, so you can have confirmation of which team won, should you need it, of course. I saw the camera cut away to Lizzie at that point.
Just
who was
to see what I was doing.
Yes, and we will see you on the next one. So thank you very much. Bye-bye.